Hey everybody, welcome back to IDP Plus Trends. Big free agent news this week. Big trade moves this week in the NFL as far as Stefon Diggs and Rashee Rice. We're gonna talk on that in just one moment. Steve, how you doing? My co-host at @AverageJoes_FF. Steve, how are you tonight?
I'm good, man. It's been as crazy as it sounds. It's been an active NFL week. A whole lot of stuff. We got some great content to kind of bounce off some of what happened in the NFL world and how this is going to help us with our dynasty teams and potentially redraft when we get closer and closer to the summertime.
For sure. So Steve and I, over this last week, we talked about, what we were going to put out this week. And we thought it'd be a good time to mention some guys to trade for, to go ahead and hunt. It's hunting season, right? So go ahead, hunt these guys that we're going to mention. In the meantime, we saw two really big rifts in the NFL, big moves here, shakeups for a couple players. First, Stefon Diggs, changes uniforms. He goes from Buffalo to Houston now. We assume to be the number one. He's going to wear number one, certainly. Steve, do you think that Stefon Diggs there is right now walking in as the number one receiver?
So I do. I know there's like a whole big timeline that people have been discussing on X and just everything and any news media. I am a big believer in Stefon Diggs and the fact that I think he is going to come into this team as the number one. We'll see how it really plays out and how they're going to implement all three receivers with Nico and Tank there as well. But I'm thinking, you got a veteran player who knows this league very well, can easily come in as the number one player. You've got, I think, Nico on the outside as well, who did a phenomenal job last season, really showed up and really showed what he was capable of. And then Tank Dell coming back from a back injury, I think would be perfect in that slot role, really kind of stretch the field. And I think that's how it's all going to play out. I do think Dalton Schultz gets affected, but I think Stefon Diggs' value is still a wide receiver one. I know a lot of people are kind of down on him with how he's performed the last two seasons. And I get it, especially all you Buffalo fans that are probably super frustrated with how he's played and how the team has ended. But I think he's too much of a talented player. Like, even if he's slowed down a step, he's so savvy. He knows how to run routes really well. I think he's the one.
I think so too, and just the pedigree he has overall, his resume to this point of his career. A lot of people, sold even Nico Collins just a year ago. Before he had this big resurgence, he really broke out this year. So, there was a little bit of uncertainty of that. Tank Dell, how was he going to transform as a rookie? And they both hit, but Stefon Diggs, just what I was saying is his resume speaks for itself, and I think he does deserve that. Now, my concern is where's if we're talking drafts coming up, if you're doing a startup for Dynasty, even in a redraft, what is his value going to be? What's his average draft position? To me, that's a kicker. If it's higher than the other two by a wide margin, I don't think I'll go for Diggs there. I know there was some rumblings about how he kind of fell off. To me, I'll put that to the side. I think he's going to go, to Houston, where they're going to be needing him, on the offense to catch passes. But at the same time, I do think that Dell here and Collins they're not going away. So I am a little bit scared of Diggs. If his average draft position is much higher than those two, I just don't think I'm going to draft the capital with him, with Stefon Diggs, and I might wait to see how late I can get Nico or Tank Dell. One thing I will say about Nico is, just a week ago, we were talking about how much of a good buy he was. And still, it's not like we saw this coming with the Diggs trade, but now with the trade happening, I think it kind of disguises Nico a little bit. I understand people might say, his target share is going to take a hit, probably does, but maybe there's more attention off him. And one thing I do want to say about all these guys is I want to give the disclaimer that I don't think this is going to be a trio where, every week 1 through 17, these guys hit. They were, Tank Dell and Collins were inconsistent at times this year. Stroud was hurt. There were other factors there. Tough to get a running game going early on in the season for the Texans. But to me, I just think that you're going to have to live and die by the up and down hills here with this trio. One week Stefon Diggs is going to have 30 points. Dell might have 5. You're going to have to. This is a reality. I think this situation is going to play out to be. I think it's week to week. Somebody new is going to be the tone setter here, but Steve, to your point, when it's all said and done, I do think Stefon Diggs is the breadwinner out of these three receivers. So Stefon Diggs, yeah, nice, really nice landing spot. To me, I'm going to say this is a better, my opinion, it's a better real life signing. I think it pushes the needle to the Texans potentially being Super Bowl contenders. They had a really good, season to end off last year. Now they add great key free agent additions as well as Diggs, right? So they've just moved mountains this offseason, and I think it's a better real life trade. But I do think his value doesn't take a dip at all. Would you agree with that, Steve? Doesn't take a dip.
No, obviously NFL wise, this is definitely a better move for Diggs than him staying in Buffalo. In Buffalo, he's got stronger value for sure in fantasy space, but I still think he is the number one. I do agree with you that if we were talking a dynasty startup right now, I am not taking Diggs ahead of Dell or Nico, unless you are absolutely trying to win this year and that's it, then possibly. Stefon's value is going to be stronger in redraft because you're talking only 1 year. You're not risking the youth aspect of it. And Diggs is only under contract 1 year. Like, this is a trial and error when it comes to Houston. Houston doesn't lose out at all in this. They gave away a second, but they also got a sixth and I think a seventh plus Diggs and doesn't have to eat the contract like Buffalo. Buffalo's giving away Diggs and eating $31 million. So there obviously was some issues going on between Buffalo and Stefon, but I think as far as redraft, his value is higher. I don't think he's a wide receiver one when it comes to fantasy. I think he's a really good high wide receiver two with wide receiver one pockets, like hits here and there, but I don't think there's anything that, and when it comes to dynasty, if you're talking startup, his value isn't strong, but if you're talking, you've already got an established team, you're trying to win now, hey, this might be a time to go after him because some people might feel he's his value is diminished. And this is a time to probably get him at a cheaper cost just to make a move to get your team in a win now situation. Like you mentioned, I saw so many people drop Nico before last year. I mean, I picked him up in waivers in a couple times and then he blew up, and so Stroud, I think, was a big difference in that. I think Stroud is going to be the one that's got the highest value in this.
Agreed.
Like absolutely. Like you and I were talking just, I was very reactionary when it came to the news that happened with Stefon Diggs. Like I reacted pretty quickly. I made some moves myself. I even got rid of Stroud, as crazy as that sounds. I moved Stroud away, but I gained, I think, a more valuable player. And that's going to kind of be the reaction to how this plays out. I got rid of Stroud for Josh Allen. Now, that's not the full detail of the trade, but essentially I traded away Stroud and now I have Josh Allen. For me, I think that's a win. I still think Josh Allen's value is still very strong. I know people are not going to agree with that because if you look at the wide receiver room right now, it's not very impressive. But I think Josh Allen's legs and his veteran savviness and everything like that is only going to play a big factor. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Stroud. If you have him, you're not giving him up for cheap, but if you can get a player, flip him around for a couple pieces like a Josh Allen or a Mahomes, it might be worth it, because you saw 1 year Stroud. You hope he has a successful season again. And that's what we're all hoping, as an NFL fan, I'm hoping he does. But when you see these type of things, like when we talk about Rashee Rice, like sometimes you take advantage of these scenarios, right? You've got to make some moves that happen. I mean, right before the Diggs trade, I got rid of Nico and I got Garrett Wilson in a trade. And now Nico's value is probably a little bit less, and we'll see how that plays out. And Garrett Wilson is a strong, talented receiver. You can see that both ways. So, you've got to take advantage of these moves. You've got to be able to take advantage of really active league mates. Obviously, if you're in the league that people are kind of quiet until after the draft, maybe you can nudge them a little bit, send them some text, because there's some things you can start doing right now, right before the draft.
And you make a good point, Steve. To our viewers and listeners, they're probably thinking, wow, you traded CJ Stroud, right? The guts on you. And that's true. Every player, doesn't matter if it's McCaffrey, if it's Stroud, if they're 28, if they're 21, every player should have a price tag, right? That's how I play. Every player has a price tag. This is a stock market, right? Stefon Diggs' value yesterday is not what it is today. Rashee Rice's value yesterday is not what it is today. That's how these things changes, just like the stock market. Get them in and get them out. Send trades, react to it, and like you said, feel where they're at. Feel where the managers are at. If they're hesitant, if someone's saying, "Oh, Stefon Diggs is going to be 31 in November," yeah, they probably want to get rid of him. You can take him and win now. So good points, good discussion about Stefon Diggs. Let's move on to Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, young guy too. This is in his second year. Here we go. He's fleeing a scene, whether he was driving, whether he was in the patch. It sounds like he was driving now. That's what the facts are coming out. Steve, what do you think about Rashee Rice? How are you, weighing his value on recent events?
So dumb move, and, hopefully he does truly learn from this. Like, this is just, typical dumb, young stuff that you do. And it's unfortunate with what happened, and even more unfortunate of how he reacted. So, but as far as a fantasy aspect, right? So when that news broke, I made a couple trades myself. I have Rashee Rice in a few of my leagues, and we talked about him last week on our last podcast. Like, I'm a big believer in Rashee Rice. I think he's a very talented receiver. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him as long as he gets his head right. Now I made some moves. One was getting rid of and one was buying. One of my sells was I traded away Rashee Rice for Nico Collins straight up. And that's kind of how I got into the Garrett Wilson aspect, kind of move pieces to get to what I really wanted. For me, I think Nico Collins is a way more talented receiver than Rashee Rice straight up. So I felt that was a very fair trade. Now, where I received Rashee Rice is part of my CJ Stroud trade. Is I obviously traded away CJ, got Josh Allen, Rashee Rice, part of that trade. So for me, I'm okay with taking on Rashee Rice because I do think he's going to have, a pretty good career as long as he does play smart and doesn't get hurt and things like that. Do we expect some suspension? Possibly. We'll see what the NFL or Kansas City does, but getting him in that is a great play. I put out a tweet to kind of see what people thought. I had over 100 votes, and a lot of people felt they needed to hold. Like, that's where they felt right now with Rasheed. They want to see more. What's going to happen is suspension. I think that's where everybody was. But you're going to get some people who are gotta get rid of him, gotta trade him, or maybe they're going to be like me. I saw people put him on trade block. I offered some cheap trades just to see what would happen. Some players, if you can get Rashee Rice for a third round, do it. No reason not to. Right. But you're not going to, you won't know until you shoot your shot. And that's how I feel about it. Because I think a lot of people like the Diggs scenario. I'm sure a lot of people saw Rashee Rice drop on that trade block, like left and right. So I think for me, I do agree with the hold position if you have them, unless someone sent you some offers. If you can get him at a good price, I think he's worth it. Because I do think he is going to learn from this. I do think he's only going to deal with a couple, games of suspension. At least that's what we're expecting. And I think it'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah, I feel that. I agree with the hold too. That's how I would have voted. A couple things come to mind here. Number one is this is a strong, disciplined team. And to have somebody commit this act, and granted, it was not, we don't know if alcohol was involved. There is no reported injuries. But just think of how bad this could have been. Henry Ruggs 2 years ago, we saw what he did. He's in prison, right? Now we have Rashee Rice, another young guy who goes and makes a bad mistake too. If there would have been said, there could have been, but as the facts came out, there was nothing said about alcohol. If that's how close I think it is to becoming a huge deal here. And we're not out of the woods yet with this yet. There still could be more information that comes out. The fact that me personally, the fact that he was driving, he didn't admit to it. He didn't say, "Hey, how are these people? Let me call 911, see if everyone's okay." To me, it's kind of a coward move. Personally, I don't root for that. And to me, it does trickle down to fantasy. I can't really root for that. To me, it's really unfortunate that this had happened. I don't think that, like I said, he's out of the woods yet. And again, going back to the hold point, I'm a hold because I just don't know what people are going to give. Maybe someone sitting in the next room is thinking exactly what I'm thinking, right? They really don't want to take him on. And again, at the same point, what is his value right now? He could be facing 2-3 games. He could be facing a season. You know, we don't know the exact details yet. So for me, that's why I'm a hold with him. If you are, hopefully you're doing a dynasty startup and he's, you know, last round pick and you take that opportunity, you take that chance. It might not be last round exactly, but his price tag's definitely going to come down. I don't think it's a bad gamble to take, because if it's only 3 games in the grand scheme of his career, that's nothing, right? And maybe he does learn from it. It was everyone was safe. There was no deaths, you know, so maybe that's the best thing that could happen. And he learns his lesson this way. That's the best thing I can see come out of this. But as far as rooting for the guy, I don't see myself doing that as of now. And to me, I'm going to pivot here. And I just think he's going to be somewhat in a doghouse. And those Marquise Brown shares, I think, are going to continue to climb. Steve, you agree with the Marquise Brown comment?
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because now all of a sudden I'm seeing all these, you know, videos of, you know, Patrick Mahomes in Hollywood catching some passes and things like that. So of course that's starting to help, you know, increase the value of Marquise. And you and I talked about this prior to actually jumping on this. It's like, you know, with this said, maybe Kansas City does do some discipline, right? Which we expect. And maybe at the 32nd pick, they go wide receiver, right? Maybe they were going to go a different route. Losing Snead was a big deal. Maybe they're going to go defense. But now losing, you know, possibly Rice for a couple games, or who knows what it's going to end up happening. Maybe they pivot and say, you know what, let's go grab a receiver. Let's grab Xavier Worthy. Let's go grab a Brian Thomas. Let's go grab a McConkey, whoever, you know, we'll see who ends up being there, but maybe they go that route. And if they do go that route, now what is Rashee Rice's value? What is Hollywood Brown's value? Like, now that changes the whole aspect when this offense comes around, because realistically, I think the way the Kansas City Chiefs have played when it was Mahomes and Tyreek, you knew who was getting the ball. This offense is changing. This offense is becoming a little more spread. So if you're going to have 3 really good receivers, maybe you're not going to have really a truly wide receiver one, because Mahomes doesn't need that. Mahomes just wants players to get open and he's going to make the play. So now their values change. So that could be something we've got to consider. So the hold play, I get it totally. That's probably the safest and best move, because you now have to see what's going to happen disciplinary wise. What's going to happen in the draft? Does this affect the draft? And again, the only reason I'm moving for or rid of is if the trade it's just too hard to pass up on. Like, that's the only reason. Holding is a smart move. You know, we don't want to jump to conclusions. We said, like, we both hope that Rashee, you know, learns from this. It's just stupid move, stupid mistake. Hopefully he truly does learn and, you know, has a great career in life after that. So that's all we can hope. But as of right now, holding smart. We'll see how Kansas City plays this out.
Exactly. Hold until someone offers you so much that you have to take it, or, you know, like you said, lowball somebody. The worst somebody can say is no, right? That's what we always say. The worst somebody can say is no. So offer away. Take the chance, especially if you need some youth on your team, right? Because this is a player that can be good for 5+ years. So those were the 2 big NFL trade, or I should say big headline news, one with a trade and one with a car wreck. So there you go. So you never know what's going to happen in the NFL. You never know what's going to happen in fantasy. But one thing you do know that is going to happen is the IDP Plus team is offering $1 for the first month of premium content. You will get all of our videos, all of our tweets, all of our shorts, and most importantly, last but not least, all of our articles that are pumping out over the off season. So go to if you are not already subscribed, go to the website, idpplus.com. Then you're going to sign up for a 1-month access, premium access, and you will make sure you use this promo code now. Use the promo code MOCKDRAFT, and that first month will only be $1. We have a lot of off-season YouTube videos. We have a lot of podcasts, a lot of articles popping up, especially now come up to the NFL draft. So really take advantage. This is a great time for you to only pay $1 for your first month on IDP Plus if you're not subscribed already. Again, go to idpplus.com, and that is the promo code MOCKDRAFT. Now, like I said before, we got interrupted by our big headlines with Diggs and Rice. We are going to dive into some offensive trade targets that Steve and I have for you tonight. So we're going to talk about the QWRT, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. Steve, I'll go first. We're not going to, we don't have to talk about all these guys extensively, but who I got for quarterbacks, who I think you can make a good case to buy low on or buy, right opportunistic buy right now. For me, it's Bryce Young at 22 years old, Justin Fields, Baker Mayfield, Sam Howell, and Tyson Bagent. And I'll first start with Bryce Young. First off, he's 22 years old. He had a lot of draft capital. He gets Diontae Johnson, second year of Jonathan Mingo. Maybe they bolster up the offensive line. I think there could be better days ahead for Bryce Young. Keep in mind, that nothing. The NFL is a win now. It's a horrible beast. You have to win now to stay in the game. So if they have another lost season, I don't think there's much guarantee for Bryce Young. But he's a guy who I'm sending out low ball offers for right now because someone might just have that bad of taste in their mouth. So Bryce Young at 22 years old, Justin Fields. I'm willing to wait that 1 year if he does sit out in Pittsburgh. I think he hits. I think it's a great get. Unfortunately, they got Russell Wilson, so we have to kind of at least wait half a year. Half a year for a 25-year-old is no, steep task. It's not a heavy price to pay. So I think there'll be plenty of better days ahead. I think Justin Fields could have been better teams. Minnesota could be one of them who I think he would have had more fantasy success. But I think Pittsburgh here is a good recipe for Justin Fields, so I'm buying on him. Baker Mayfield, 28 years old, really down in dynasty rankings, universal. You'll look, he got that 3-year deal. He gets another year of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton. Things really haven't changed there. And I expect Baker to even have a better year in his second season with Tampa Bay. Furthermore about Baker is he just airs it out. And I love quarterbacks who can just throw the ball. I don't need him to be winning. I'm actually hoping that they're losing so he can throw more. So Baker Mayfield's another get at 28 years old. Sam Howell, again, going back to the Justin Fields, you might have to wait a year, but the price tag's so darn low right now. I don't think he got a fair shake. Hopefully he didn't get rid of him in Dynasty for Washington Commanders. Now he goes to Seattle. I think he's a good get, even if you do have to wait that year. Eventually he'll at least play. He'll at least start. So somebody who has 3 quarterbacks and then they have Sam Howell, yeah, I'm making trades to them. And finally, Tyson Bagent. I talked about Bagent before this offseason. Not somebody who's going to be, supplanting Caleb Williams at, quarterback 1 for the Bears. Not the case, but somebody who proved more than capable as a rookie at 23 years old. Yeah, I think he's going to play himself onto another team just because another team's going to need quarterback. We saw how deep quarterback position was. I think he eventually moves on from the Chicago Bears. I think he plays for, I don't care who it is. I think he's going to be a starter somewhere. He's earned that. So I'll turn it over to you, Steve. Who are some quarterbacks that you're trying to get right now in trades?
So I got 3. I got a repeat with Bryce Young. I think he's probably the number 1 quarterback to buy right now at this point. Just because, like you mentioned, everyone drafted him probably 101 last season, which was a mistake, but they drafted him 101 in the rookie draft and they got burned, right? And, now people are starting to bring up the height thing again and all this other stuff. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think the new head coach, Dave Canales, is huge. Look at what he did for Baker, kind of reinvigorated his, career and got him a nice little contract from Tampa. So I think that's going to be a big deal. Adding Diontae Johnson was a huge move because Diontae Johnson is a great wide receiver that I think I don't know. Pittsburgh does that. Pittsburgh develops some great receivers, and then at a certain point, maybe they just have some little ego issues, and then they move on. So, Diontae can separate himself from defenders. He can run routes really well. I think he's going to be a huge addition, which I think his skill set can also kind of help rub off of Mingo. You still got Adam Thielen, the veteran, out there. Then, you got some running backs. I think this is a good time to buy Bryce Young. I actually got Bryce Young. I'm the opposite. Even though I am a believer in Fields, I actually traded Fields for Bryce Young in a 3rd-round pick. So I felt really good about that. So yeah, it's a risk for me because I have Bryce Young and CJ Stroud in that dynasty league. So I got some 2 young studs that I think would be really good. My other quarterback is Deshaun Watson. I know no one talks about him. I get it. He has not played well. He has not played healthy. There were a lot of issues, right? So I think this is the perfect time to get him because 1, his rankings are just dropping. No one cares about Deshaun Watson at this point. But it's hard pressed to not go after him because when he did play last season, he was top 10, 3 out of 5 games. He's now got Jerry Jeudy. You got Amari Cooper still. You got Nick Chubb coming back, Jerome Ford, like Njoku. Like this team, they've got some weapons. And as long as he can stay healthy, I think Deshaun can end up being a possible top 12, top 10 quarterback. But the injury concerns are real. So just understand that. But I think he's a great buy. And the last quarterback I'm going to mention as a good buy, Josh Allen. I know he's going to be tough, but this is the only time that you can get Josh Allen at any point when it comes to fantasy, because when he shows up and does what he does this year, it's never going to happen again unless you're doing a startup. So for me, if you're going to go big, this is the opportunity to go after Josh Allen, because again, with the lack of receivers, people are nervous and you might get a pretty good price for him.
I agree on Josh Allen. I agree that Deshaun Watson's value is the lowest it has ever been, but I still can't root for him because I'm in Pittsburgh. So there's that.
I completely, there's a lot of reasons why people won't root for him, but I completely understand that. But yes, for dynasty purposes or even redraft, you can get Deshaun at probably the last pick of your redraft and might have a quarterback sitting on your bench that could be top 10. So yeah, I think his value is there. I think, again, a lot of people have forgotten about him. You and I both agree Bryce Young should be a buy if you can get him. Some people might hold on because they did spend their one-on-one on him, so it might be a little tough. But I think like Bryce and Josh, I think are the two players that this is their worst opportunity as far as value goes. So you might have a chance to get them. You might. So
true. Good. We got quarterbacks. Now we're going to move to the wide receivers. I got a lot that I'll cover, but won't touch on every one extensively, at least. We got Brandon Aiyuk is my first one, 26 years old. DJ Moore, 26. Christian Kirk, 27. George Pickens, 23. Diontae Johnson, 27. Keenan Allen, 31. Marvin Mims, 22. Jakobi Meyers, 27. Gabe Davis, 25. Michael Wilson, 24, Dontayvion Wicks, 22, and Jonathan Mingo, 22 years old. And I'll start off by this. Brandon Aiyuk, I think it's a last call for him. People are still saying, oh, Debo's there. Debo's the number one. I think it's going to be Aiyuk, whether it's right now, week 1, week 5. I just think his stock is going to continue to climb. So it's the last call, ring the bell. DJ Moore, another guy, only 26 years old. Now we see Keenan Allen come to Chicago. We think maybe, he's going to take targets away. DJ Moore, you could say anything you want, but the guy still shows up with whatever quarterback is there. I'm not worried about the rookie. DJ Moore, I think he's got plenty of gas in the tank. Really like him. Definitely somebody who's higher on my dynasty rankings than consensus. Christian Kirk at 27 years old was off to another great season before injury derailed his rest of the season. Only 27 years old, finally established as a WR1 top wide receiver, not only in his team, but also in fantasy between WR1 and 2 rankings. So Christian Kirk, I mean, they lose Ridley. They get Gabe Davis. To me, I think Ridley's the better player as of right now. So I think it benefits Christian Kirk, different type of styles. So to me, that's why I'm in on Kirk, not old. Then we got George Pickens in Pittsburgh. I think the sky's the limit for him. They get rid of Johnson, who I'll talk about next. But George Pickens, I think, now if you're in a dynasty startup, you poach him earlier than maybe rankings would say. Or if you're in a dynasty league already, maybe send a trade out for Pickens before his skyrocket, before his stock skyrockets, even though we saw towards the end of the season, maybe the window's getting low or getting shorter because of how great he was at the end of the season. Diontae Johnson. I'll touch on Johnson. Only 27 years old. Steve had mentioned great route runner, great at getting separation. I think he's going to be a target hog for Bryce Young for a while. This is not an old player. He's going to be there for a while. Excuse me. So I think Diontae Johnson, really nice in PPR leagues, especially. Keenan Allen, 31 years old. But yeah, I don't consider him like a aging, falling wide receiver. He had probably the best year of his career at 31 years old. So to me, I think he's going to be a great addition to the Bears offense. Him, Kmet, and DJ Moore are going to be a fantastic trio there for Caleb Williams. So I think this is a great move, great get. So I'm all in on Keenan Allen. Marvin Mims, I've been preaching him since last year, and I've still been dead wrong, but I'm still going to preach him because I still think there's a place in all of our hearts and our teams for Marvin Mims. Take the shot, huge upside, especially if you're in return yard leagues. Definitely somebody who's going swept under the rug right now. So Marvin Mims going to be hopefully the number 2 receiver there as of right now. And guess what? Even if they draft somebody, I'll still take him as the number 3 because I think he's going to pop off and be that number 2 regardless. Jakobi Meyers, 27 years old, really like a wide receiver 4 in dynasty rankings. To me, he's a wide receiver 3 with upside. I think he had some double-digit target games there in Vegas last year. I think that with Gardner Minshew, they've upgraded a quarterback. So not only Devontae Adams, now you have Jakobi Meyers. I think they're a great 1-2. I'm all in on Jakobi Meyers. Dynasty, redraft, doesn't matter. He's only 27. He's a great player, and he can also throw the ball too. He's a former quarterback, so he has got that trick play kind of in his bag. Gabe Davis, 25 years old. I think the grass is just greener. Maybe change of scenery does him well. They lost Ridley too, so there's a void there in Jacksonville. Mike Wilson, only 24 years old for Arizona. As of right now, he's the guy. You know, there's no Marvin Harris, there's no neighbors there right now, and there might not be for whatever reason, right? So probably one of those rookies does go there. You could probably bank on that, but still, Michael Wilson at worst is a number 2 wide receiver in his second year. I'll take that. Dontayvion Wicks, 22 years old. I just like him a lot out of Green Bay. One thing about the Packers is they spread the ball around. You're going to have to live with those peaks and valleys, but I still think Dontayvion Wicks has a chance to really elevate himself on that depth chart at only 22 years old. And finally, Mingo. I know we talked about Diontae Johnson. They also have Thielen there, who was a target hog last year. I just think that this is somebody who, if I'm going to start up, this is number 1 big, best place to get him is in a startup right now. But I'm also sending trades in Dynasty for him because I think he's kind of like the Bryce Young. They're teammates, but they also had the same outcome, right? Rookies that just didn't live up to the hype. But I'll still take a chance on him as a second sophomore, come up. So these are my wide receivers to get. Steve, I'll pass it off to you.
So I'm gonna make it simple. I got 4 guys that I believe in that you should go after. I got Diontae Johnson. I think you and I both agree on that. Diontae is going to go into a situation where he's going to see 120 to 150 targets. Like, that's the expectation. So I think he's going to get plenty of opportunities and chances to succeed in this offense. And I do like this role for him. And I think you could probably get him at a good price. I think the more and more people listen to a podcast like ours or, shows, like, he might be a little more expensive than you'd like, but I think he's going to be great value. Another receiver that a lot of people forget about is Chris Godwin, for the Tampa Bay Bucks. He doesn't get the love because Mike Evans really overshadows that offense, and rightly so. He's a great receiver, and he should be a future Hall of Famer. That's a different discussion. But, like, Chris Godwin has been fantastic, and he actually had a really good rapport with Baker Mayfield last year, and I think it's only going to get better. He's definitely somebody that I think, again, probably get him at a good price. And you need a solid wide receiver 2, solid wide receiver 3 on your offense. He is going to get that every single week. Like, he is so consistent. Another receiver that I'm going to mention is Quentin Johnston. Look, I know a lot of people, probably drafted him anywhere from like the 103 to 108 spot in their rookie draft last season and had high hopes. And then he just flopped. Like, one of the worst performances in a rookie receiver for a while. So for me, at this moment, he is going to be the star and stud for the Los Angeles Chargers. Like, it's not good. Do we expect that to be the same? No, the draft, you're probably going to see a top tier receiver going to LA. But even with that said, I still think some players just need a little bit more time to adjust to the NFL. And I think he's one of those players. I think he is still very talented. I think this is the best time to get him right now. And so for me, I think I'm going to grab him, especially, again, pre-draft. He is the number 1 receiver at this current time. So that's one of my favorite ones. And the last receiver I'm going to mention is going to be, again, for me, might be a little bit harder to get, but it's T. Higgins. With the whole contract situation, no one is sure, is he going to stay? Is he going to get traded? Like, no one knows what's happening with T. Higgins. It's been kind of hush. It's been kind of quiet. You can tell he's disgruntled. He would like to stay in Cincinnati, but if he doesn't get the amount of money that he's hoping for, he wants out. And there's a good chance he does get traded. I think what's happening right now, there's a hold. I think they are trying to work on a contract, but I would not be surprised if he's a draft day trade. Like, I think that could be something that happens. So for me, T. Higgins can go to a team like, I don't know if it's going to happen in Buffalo because of the amount of money, but Buffalo, obviously now needs a receiver, right? There was always that rumor of him going to Carolina. I doubt that's going to happen. I can see him going to the Giants. They need a receiver. Like there are teams that need a receiver. So for me, I think that would be a player that you could possibly get because no one knows what's happening with him. And with uncertainty, sometimes people panic and might get rid of him at a cheaper price.
I like that, and I'll tell you one thing about, I really like the Quentin Johnston pick. He had a bad rookie year. You know who else had a bad rookie year there just a few years ago? That was Mike Williams. Mike Williams in 2017, he had 95 receiving yards in his rookie year, no touchdowns. Then had a pretty good 6 years after that. So I think there's hope for Quentin Johnston. I do back that, and he kind of be on my honorable mention list. I rattled off a lot. I'm sorry, but absolutely agree with Quentin Johnston. I like him a lot. So definitely a guy to trade for as well. Hopefully T. Higgins, that Buffalo would be nice for him. He'd be a target hog there. Boy, make trades for him now in that case, right? Moving on to our running backs, and I got a lighter load here at running back. My first one, I made this call before the news came out about Stefon Diggs being traded, but I'm still going to back it, and that's Joe Mixon at 27 years old. I think now I'll spin my viewpoint to this. Before it was, hey, he's on a good team. He's going to get some touchdowns. He has really no competition there. I don't think Pierce retakes his role there. But now they have Diggs. And I think a lot of owners, managers will see it as like, wow, they're going to throw so much. What's Mixon's value now? Now I had to stomach him there with Dell and Collins. Now they have Diggs. They're just going to be thrown. In that sense, I'm sending a trade to that guy because Joe Mixon just gets it done year after year. He's not 32 years old. He's not hanging on by a thread. He's 27, still has good years left. It's not a win now, it's both. He's going to help you win now, and he's got years left. So Joe Mixon, I think on a perennial Super Bowl contending team, I think those teams generally have good running backs. So I'm backing Joe Mixon here. Doesn't matter PPR or standard. He's going to get it either way. Hopefully PPR he gets a little bit more catches now. But I still like Joe Mixon a lot. I'm backing him. Another guy is Zamir White. Listen, I know, he could not be the number one. They could draft somebody, but they have Zamir White. He showed out. They drafted him, I want to say last year, then or 2 years ago. He showed out at the end of the year with Jacobs being injured. So he showed capable. He can get it done. He can be that bell cow back. And then guess what? I like the move that they did for fantasy as far as the Raiders. They brought in Alex Madison. They're probably saying, hey, we have a guy who, if Zamir White doesn't work out, or we can spell White with Madison. To me, if I'm looking at the Raiders, I think they figured it out at running back, which means I don't see them drafting a running back. So right now, it is what it is. Zamir White today is their starting running back for Vegas. And I think by the time the season rolls around, he's still going to be their starting running back. So for me, those people that are hanging on the hopes of there's going to be another running back there, it could be. I doubt it because they've kind of solved their two vets here. They have Zamir White and Madison. So I think his value is going to stay firm here. I'm actually taking him off the trade block because now they signed Madison. So I think they're cemented here. This is what it's going to be. So I like as a hold or a buy Zamir White. Next guy I'll mention is Kendre Miller, only 21 years old. A lot of draft capital was spent on him last year, and I don't think it was for naught. I do think he's going to hit. It's just the Kamara. You're going to have to wait your turn, or maybe an injury happens, and then Kendre Miller gets his shot. But I still like him a lot. For somebody who has spent so heavy of a price tag, I think you can get him pretty cheap relatively to what his value was last year. So I'm backing him, preaching patience. And finally, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard's only 24 years old. He finally got a chance to be the number one, unanimous number one back there in Carolina. They added pieces around them. I think Bryce Young gets better. I think the offensive line gets better. Now they have to be more cognizant of those wide receivers. A better offense as a whole. I think Chuba Hubbard is a winner in free agency. Addition by no addition or subtraction, just kind of won the way the cards were shook out. So Chuba Hubbard, 24 years old, I think a sneaky guy. I'm not saying he's going to be a starting running back for the next 2 or 3 years, but for 2024, I think he's a starting running back and he has value, and I'm willing to trade for him as well as the other three I mentioned. Steve, what do you got for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off the Chuba Hubbard move. I like the Chuba Hubbard buy right now. Like I actually ended up I had a team that was struggling at the running back position, and let's be honest, there's really no running back in this class that you're like, ooh, I'm excited to grab. Like these guys you're gonna get probably in the second, third round in your rookie draft, and even then, there's no guarantee that any of these guys have an opportunity to even get plenty of touches. Now you've got a guy like Chuba who is on his final rookie contract. So he's got something to prove. He, even though has a competitor in the backfield with him and Miles Sanders, who did get paid, essentially lost his job. Chuba took over that role. He wasn't as efficient as you would hope. He was only 3.8 yards per carry, where the past couple years before was amazing. I think that changes. Again, I think having Diontae Johnson helps to kind of get the team off of just focusing on Chuba. But I think he's a great value. I actually ended up getting Chuba in a couple fantasy drafts. Trades. I got one for 211. I traded my 211 for him, which I thought was worth it. You're not going to get a running back like this. And then I got him for the 302. So for me, it was worth giving away. It's a risk, but it's not a huge risk. And I think that's going to be a good play. My running back as well, on top of the Chuba Hubbard, I think is for me, a good one is Najee Harris. I am a big Najee Harris believer. There are a lot of people who don't believe Najee Harris should even have been a first-round draft pick in the NFL, and a lot of people just don't believe in him, and they just say, oh, he gets 1,000 yards because he touches the ball a lot. But if you actually watch towards the end of the season last season, he was one of the best fantasy running backs in the NFL. And that speaks volumes because a lot of people pretty much pushed Najee to the side and were like, oh, but it's Jalen Warren's season. Look, from a Dallas Cowboy fan, let me just explain to you. 2 running backs is a good thing. Just because your second running back looks better than your starting running back does not mean he is the guy. I can speak to you when it comes to Tony Pollard. I love Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard was amazing in the role he was behind Zeke. Him being the face of the running back position was not it. And I think that's the same scenario with Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren is not an every down back. Najee is. And for me, I'm going to go after Najee because the fact that is there are still so many people who believe in Warren and they believe Warren's going to eat at Najee. Take it. I'll take that risk and I'll put Najee on my backfield. And the last running back I want to mention, as far as I kind of went back and forth. I almost mentioned another guy, but I'm actually going to put Javonte Williams. I had almost mentioned Gus Bus. I'm probably the only person who believes in the Gus Bus, just because, again, there's no competition when it comes to the Chargers. But for me, I think Javonte Williams is a great buy. Again, another running back that's forgotten about. He was a great college back, has had some injury concerns, really hasn't been given the chance to really be the guy, especially with what's going on in Denver. But for me, I think, if Denver does get a rookie quarterback, which is the expectation, what do you get? What helps a rookie quarterback? Your running game. And I think Javonte has that ability to help really alleviate the running game and help the rookie quarterback succeed. So for me, I think Javonte is a nice little buy because he really hasn't shown up really well. People did draft him pretty high in the rookie drafts a couple years ago. And I think you can get him for, again, a late second, early third round. I'm okay with taking that risk because, again, you're not going to get a quality running back like that in this draft. It's just not going to happen. So when it comes to, what you're seeing out these running backs, some of these guys you could probably get at a good pick.
I like that. I like the Javonte pick. I also agree with you. A lot of people here in Pittsburgh, they're really like, hoping that Jalen Warren is the guy. I don't think we want to see that. I agree with you. I think it's the Tony Pollard effect. Jalen Warren, great player for the running back for the Steelers. Better in real life than I think in fantasy, and we don't want to see him get 15 touches a game. It's just not a recipe for success, not in the NFL, not in fantasy. So I'm with you there. We're going to go into our tight ends, but before we do that, I want to mention 2 things. Number one, if you're not already subscribed to IDP Plus, please go ahead and do that. Number 2, if you haven't followed me, I'm at Johnny Freak in F1. Find me on Twitter. If you haven't followed Steve, he's at AVGJoes_FF. And the third thing I wanted to mention, if you are a commissioner, if you're a manager, doesn't matter. If you want to get some swag for your kids' Little League baseball team, whatever the occasion may be. Go to Trophy Smack if you're looking for a trophy, a belt, a ring, anything like that. Those guys got you covered. IDP Guys is running. We were known as IDP Guys. We're now IDP Plus, but the promo code is we're still honoring the promo code, and that promo code is IDP Guys. So once you go to Trophy Smack, you fill your cart, you know what you're going to do. You're going to check out. Use the promo code IDP Guys if you are buying a trophy or a belt. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you a free ring to go with that trophy or belt. So if once again, go to Trophy Smack, use this promo code, make sure you're getting that trophy or a belt, and you will get your free ring. Right now, we're going to move into our last position to speculate, to make trades for, and that's the tight end position. Who I have is a bunch of young guys and one older guy. First is Cole Kmet, 25 years old. Next is Michael Mayer, 22. Third is Cade Otton, 24. My old guy is 28, and that's Jonnu Smith. And finally, Daniel Bellinger at 23. So first, let me start off with Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet, first off, if you're in a startup, he's not old. He's 25 years old. We saw him have really nice flashes. Yeah, he's gotten injured in the past, this season too. But when he's available, when he's out there, he gets targets. We saw, I think, 2 or 3 games he had double-digit target shares. And listen, I understand there's going to be a new quarterback. They got Keenan Allen. To me, I think that just makes his average draft position lower, Cole Kmet. And if you're in a position where you don't like drafting tight ends, you're not sure about Travis Kelce, how long he's going to play, you're not buying into these rookies, the rookies are going to hit. I get all that. Stay safe and just take a Cole Kmet later. He's going to give you a good season in 2024. Rookie quarterbacks love throwing to the tight end. He's had a good track record, good resume, and I think he's going to be doing it for a good 3 to 5 more years on the Bears team. So I think Cole Kmet's a good buy. Moving on, Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer is 22 years old, so he's very young. Another guy who was high draft pick last year, not only in NFL but in your startups. And I think you might just want to test the waters. I do think that other teams are probably thinking the same, that there's better days ahead, but you never know. Someone might want to win now. They might want to they might just be so, upset at what they disappointed on what Michael Mayer did last year. So I think that's a good trade target too. Going to be tough to get, but the worst somebody can say is no. Next is Cade Otton. I just pulled a trigger for Cade Otton last week. I gave up Hopkins and Alex Madison for Cade Otton. Yeah, I get it. Hopkins is a good wide receiver, but I think Cade Otton, 24 years old, another year with Baker in that system. I think he's another tight end who's really under the radar right now. So Cade Otton fits the bill for me. I think he has an even better year next year and years down the line. Jonnu Smith at 28 years old. It's not a sexy pick, but I'm not saying he's going to take volume away from Waddle or Hill, but at the same time, those guys take attention. And now we have Jonnu Smith, who's a quicker player who can kind of get open in the middle. I think they use him a lot more than they did Gesicki. I don't look at Mike Gesicki and say that's what's going to happen in Miami. I think Jonnu Smith, he was able to do relatively well in Atlanta last year with Kyle Pitts. Now he's by himself. Durham Smythe is going to be blocking. No other tight end is giving him pressure. So I think Jonnu Smith is a great buy. And finally, Daniel Bellinger. And Bellinger, I'm not putting really any high hopes into. They might sign somebody. They might draft a tight end. Who knows what happens in New York? First off, it's not a great place to catch balls for a skill position. I don't believe in that. Even Waller, who had a great tenure in Vegas, came here and did squat. So I'm not guaranteeing anything with Bellinger. But what I do know is Daniel Bellinger, even before Waller was in New York, Daniel Bellinger as a rookie had a nice year. And that was kind of an outlier at the time because 2 years ago we didn't see rookies do well at the tight end position. So Daniel Bellinger, only 23 years old. Waller might retire. This is like a last call. If he's on waivers right now, I'm picking him up straight up. But also if he's on another team and a team views him as depth, I'm going to trade for him because I think he's going to be a starter this year and pretty valuable for not only this year, but the future. Steve, what do you got for me for tight end?
Yeah, I actually do like that Bellinger move. I had him in a few leagues because I thought, man, he looked good coming out of college and he played really well. And then Waller comes in to ruin my dreams. So screw that guy. I hope he does retire. No, my tight end. So for me, my first tight end, I'm gonna go Hayden Hurst for the Chargers. So look, just the lack of weapons at this point. One of the articles I wrote for IDP was about the tight end position in the free agency and kind of how that really kind of played out. And one of my favorite players and where I thought was going to be a winner in this was Hayden Hurst. People forget so long ago when he was with Matt Ryan for the Falcons, he was a top 10 tight end. He has the ability. He just had some injuries and he's been in some situations where he wasn't really a focal point. At this point, the way this Chargers offense is, even if they get a rookie wide receiver, Hurst has the ability to be a focal point in this offense, right? Like I'm curious how it's going to play out with this new regime, right? With Harbaugh. But I do think Hurst is someone who can get really cheap. There's no expectations, and he might actually end up being a top 15, top 10 tight end because of what could, really, perspire there. And I think for him, it's just, if he gets 50 to 70 targets, that's a pretty good year for him. So I like him there. Another tight end I like a lot is just like you, is Cade Otton. I think Cade Otton was a great pick for when he went into Tampa. I think he started to get that connection with obviously Baker Mayfield last season. It's a little bit more saturated with Mike Evans and Godwin and Palmer, and so you've got some options for this team. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, again, they do have a new offensive coordinator. Dave Canellis went to obviously Carolina, so we'll see how this new offense plays out. But I think Cade Otton is a great tight end you can grab. Again, get really cheap. You might even get him off waivers. He's probably sitting on someone's taxi squad. So I think he's a really good one. And the last tight end I'm going to mention is my boy Muth. Please stop forgetting about Pat Freiermuth. Like, Muth has been amazing. I know he had some great connections when Big Ben was there. Obviously, Pickett was just not it. Let's just be honest. It just didn't really, transpire into what we had hoped. But I'm still a huge Pat Freiermuth fan. I think he's a great tight end. He is definitely someone that's kind of got pushed back in the rankings because, let's be honest, Laporta, McBride, and Kincaid, all these other amazing rookie tight ends last year just kind of skyrocketed, and everyone forgot about your consistent veteran tight ends like Freiermuth. So for me, I think Muth is a great buy. I think people have forgotten about him. I know, you've got Darnell Washington, who is a freak type of athlete, even though he's more in line of a blocker than he is more a receiver. So I'm not really threatened by him. And, we talked about it. Diontae Johnson's gone. You got Pickens. How confident are they in the other receivers? So with Pickens there, you got Freiermuth, who I think is going to be a value. Obviously, Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Like, those are your top tier players when it comes to the Pittsburgh offense. So I'm a huge Freiermuth fan. I've had him in a few leagues. I'm trying to go after him in a couple because I think he is an amazing talent and, again, just forgotten about.
Yeah, you make a good case there with Freiermuth. And you know what? My thing with him was last year was like, how much volume is he actually going to get? Well, that was an older regime, right? Now it's a new team, new look, new quarterback. So I think, yeah, definitely better days can be ahead for Pat Freiermuth. And let me just say, where his average draft position in startups right now is just so low. If you could come out, if you're throwing the tight end position and your starter is Pat Freiermuth and your backup is Jonnu Smith, I think you're in a great position. You didn't invest heavy in the tight end position, but you got two capable guys. Smith's a little bit older. He can, 1 or 2 years, you're probably thinking Pat Freiermuth, I think, is going to be in Pittsburgh. Look at Heath Miller. We don't, ragtag it at tight end. We get a guy and we ride him. So I think Pat Freiermuth is going nowhere. He's definitely on the upswing, and I think is a great call, definitely as a trade target because of how low, how modest our expectations are of him because of what, had happened the last year, maybe even more. But yeah, there was always flashes there with him and Hayden Hurst. I think I have a good vote of confidence in him too. Not really as a dynasty player, but even in dynasty, 1 year for a redraft, or if you're looking for 1 year stopgap in dynasty, I think, yeah, if volume's on his side, then I definitely think that he can make waves. Hayden Hurst is, like you said, he did have that nice year in where was that? Atlanta. Yeah. So he definitely has good track record. And yeah, if he's there, they don't go Brock Bowers, I'm definitely backing that. So really like these guys that we talked about. To all our viewers and listeners, I want to say thank you for hearing us out. Put in the comments, if you agree, if you don't, if you dispute it, that's cool too. We're always open to comments. We were just talking about some comments that people had in the last couple of videos, and really it's nice. We're new to this. This is only one plus give or take month of podcasting with you, Steve, and we got people who are who are signing up to IDP guys, subscribing and giving us comments. So I just want to give us a shout out, and the people that comment, people that view this, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Steve, before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, just we're 3 weeks away officially from the NFL draft. I think we're going to end up doing a live stream for the draft through IDP Plus. So make sure you guys are subscribed and get those notification bell is on, so that way you guys are notified when we drop that. We'll be talking some insight, just having a good time. It's a draft party. Let's enjoy what's going to happen for that first round. So that's going to be exciting. Again, comment down below. I would love for anybody who's listening and watching, just comment trades that you are interested in or trying to have, or maybe showboat a little bit. Maybe you made some moves that just you felt really confident and good about, and we'd love to see that and again give some advice that we have to help you guys out. That's what we're here for. And of course, if you don't agree with anything, my name is not Steve and that is not Johnny, just so you guys are aware. So but yeah, just having a good time. Ready, 3 weeks away. I'm super excited. The draft can't be any faster, and just ready to kind of get this season going.
Absolutely, man. Love talking this trade talk. If you know me, if you play in any leagues with me, I'm a shark when it comes to trades. Steve, you might be crazier than me, man. You're popping off trades left and right. Rashee Rice the day after the news breaks. I love it. So if you're watching this right now, you got two guys who love to trade. It's a stock market. What the value is today is not what it is tomorrow. And please don't tell us, oh, I'm not going to trade this guy. I picked him in the second round. Once you draft, capital is irrelevant. So thank you to all our viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of your evening. We will catch you next time on IDP Plus Trends.